I have this great pleasure in welcoming you all to this exclusive interactive session on recovery and resurgence, opportunities and challenges in the new normal, with Shri Sunil Kant Munjal, Chairman of Hero Enterprise. We are thankful to you, sir, for accepting our invitation and coming on board today and share your perspectives with the members of our committee. Shri Sunil Kant Munjal is an iconic figure in the two-wheeler industry. He is one of the founder promoters of the Hero Group, India's premier automotive manufacturing group that has evolved from being the world's largest bicycle maker to the largest two-wheeler maker in the world. He is the current chairman of Hero Enterprise with interest in insurance distribution, steel making, real estate, and corporate training. Shri Munjal chairs the board of Doon School and sits on the boards of IIM Ahmedabad, SRCC, and Indian School of Business, which also happens to be my alma mater. He has co-founded BML Munjal University and is the president of Dayanand Medical College and Hospital, Ludhiana. He has served as the president of CII and All India Management Association. Shri Munjal has been a member of the Prime Minister's Council on Trade and Industry and was on government task forces that prepared the ground for India's banking and insurance reforms. Mr. Munjal has set up the Serendipity Arts Foundation, which aims to revive patronage in the arts. He is also the president of the Ludhiana Sanskriti Samagam, which supports performing arts across North India. He has also chronicled the incredible saga of Heroes founders in a book, The Making of Hero, which featured amongst India's prominent bestsellers for several months and recently won the Business Book of the Year award at Tata Literature Live Festival 2020. Shri Munjal, before I request you to address us, I would like to share a little bit about the chamber and also about our members. So Merchant Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a leading chamber of commerce in Eastern India, and it's providing crucial link between businesses and the policymakers. Founded in the year 1901, the chamber carries with it a 120-year-old legacy of uniting the business community in Kolkata and East India. MCCI has members covering a wide cross-section of small, medium, and large industries, trade, and different professions and services, apart from indirect members through various industry and trade associations affiliated to the chamber. As we all know, COVID has had an unprecedented global effect. Apart from human suffering, it has caused major economic disruptions across all sectors. Given the magnitude and extent of this spread, the central and state governments have accorded topmost priority to it. As members of the business community, we have also pivoted and are trying to reimagine how we run our businesses. While green shoots are being seen in many sectors, it is imperative that as business leaders, we are able to seize the opportunity in this challenge and make the most of it. As a tool to do so, I now invite Shri Sunil Kant Munjal to share some insights on how we can reinvent ourselves and emerge stronger from this crisis. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shri Sunil Kant Munjal.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Akash Shah. And thank you to the members of the MCCI for inviting me to interact with you. You know, we are going through, in many ways, not just an unusual time, but also a very interesting time. Because the changes that we are going to go through in the short term are, to say the least, dramatic. And this is creating all kinds of emotions. People are scared, apprehensive, excited, hopeful, depressed, and excited all at the same time. And this is rightfully because we have not in living history seen any situation similar to the one we face right now. So I would say that we need to look at what's going on in two different parts. One is things that are happening and things that we can do right now in the immediate future. And also at the same time, we must keep in mind that at some point in time, things will get back to what could be the new normal. And we also have to prepare for the new normal and what we are going to do at that time. That this has created an unprecedented crisis in people's lives, in society, and in economies is an understatement in many ways. Because no matter what people had planned or anticipated, nobody had thought of a situation where all the people in all the businesses in all the countries would come to a grinding halt at one time. And that has created a situation which was completely unforeseen. We suddenly saw uh, millions of people locked in their homes. And at the same time, we saw an other set of millions of people who became the frontline warriors against this unprecedented and unforeseen enemy. Healthcare workers, the security forces, the police forces, people coming and delivering packages in our homes, shopkeepers who kept the shops open, stores which were able to get supplies. So if you look at this, uh, even the very word of the word patriotism and public service and social service actually changed in this period. Of course, we are still concerned about the national security and those who fight for us on the country's borders. And as it happens, we've had a kind of a crisis on our borders going on now over the last few months as well. But I'm just saying that it made us think, it made us rethink our own priorities. People started to look and start to imagine as to what are the real priorities right now. Is it those around me? Is it members of my family? Is it my extended family? So many people figured out a new way to work while staying at home, or some of us while visiting offices, sometimes, not all, and certainly not all the time, figured out a way that you can actually work from almost anywhere. Unless you have to run a specific machine or to be at a specific point and a place and time, you could actually do many things at home. The adoption of technology, which in any case was happening over a period of time, got accelerated by anywhere from 5 to 8 or 10 years in almost all aspects of our lives. Things like education started virtual classes almost overnight. The importance of healthcare and public health got highlighted like never before. Businesses, on the one hand, suffered badly, but there were some, like the businesses of e-commerce, of technology, of communication, of healthcare, who suddenly catapulted into the public consciousness as being critical key drivers which were holding us together during this crisis. Many companies make plans which also have options, one or two or three options of what might happen if the scenario changes. But I cannot imagine that there would be many companies who had this kind of a black swan event as a part of their planning process where everything would come to a stop at the same time. So it has also made us think about how we plan and how we execute our plans. And I think that's why I said it is an interesting and an exciting time. We do know that in the coming months and years, either through wide application of the many vaccines which are now under different stages of development, or herd immunity which is gradually getting built up, or maybe even the virus burning itself out, or a combination of these three, this situation will change. So, which is why I said at the beginning that we need to think of the situation in two parts. One is the current, immediate one. So, as we saw up to September, there was like a collapse of the entire economy. But the last quarter demonstrated that the recovery can and was better than expected. But please remember, it is not a recovery all around. It is not as if every sector or every vertical or every segment of the business and economy has improved, neither worldwide and certainly not in India. On the one hand, we see businesses like bicycles, tractors, sugar, motorcycles, cement turn around very sharply and very smartly. In fact, some of them have showed their highest ever numbers of revenues and production and sales in the last few months. While at the same time, businesses like travel, hospitality, entertainment, movie theaters, sports facilities, anything which required large gatherings of people and physical interaction and interface of large numbers has suffered very, very badly. So we have been talking about how our recovery would be. Would it be L-shaped? Would it be U-shaped? Would it be V-shaped? What we are now discovering is that we have a K-shaped recovery taking place. And the reason I'm saying it's a K-shape is because some sectors, as I just mentioned, have had a very sharp and a very smart recovery. And it is expected that this will continue for a while. It is also expected that the overall recovery will allow India to have lesser of a negative growth than was earlier anticipated. We have seen that in the last quarter, it was so, and the expectation is in the next quarter too now, it is predicted that we will be less worse off than we thought we will be. We will still have negative growth, but it would be lesser negative growth than was anticipated, which automatically means the year after, if the same trend continues, we will have very sharp growth because of the base effect coming into play as well. Now let's look at the sectors which have not done well or which are still suffering. Unfortunately, many of these are sectors which have massive employment, large export, and a significant amount of manufacturing which take place in them. And that is where the problem lies. Now, the recovery that is taking place, or those sectors which have turned around, are sectors which had more automation, more use of technology, better organized supply chains, and logistics already in place. And by its very implication, while they have employment, they have significant employment, they have less employment than some of the other sectors. So with this, what it means is the overall economy will start to improve, but the per capita income will see a bigger disparity because sectors with large employments are still suffering and will continue to for a while. So with the per capita income actually going down, or let me correct myself, the disparity going up between the top and the bottom, this will potentially lead to additional social tension. So we do need to be better prepared that there is a need for us to focus on those sectors which still have not recovered or have not demonstrated a turnaround which could allow them to get back to their previous or at least close to their previous operation, and therefore their ability to bring people back. Because we do know a large number of people lost their jobs when the businesses shut down. Despite the government's request, for the first couple of months, people kept everyone on their rolls. They also paid wages and salaries. But by month 3 and 4, we started to see a change take place. Now, those sectors which have turned around have started employing people, and some have even seen a shortage. Many of them called the migrant workers back, including spending extra effort to pay for their travel back, etc. But because all of them have not found jobs back, we will see a depression in consumption of some of the goods and services which they consume. And therefore, the recovery of demand in those sectors will still continue to be slow. So what is it that we should be doing in our companies, in our businesses, since all of you are involved with trade and commerce? I think it's important that all of us do a hard rethink of our business strategy, of our plan, and how we operate as individual entities and certainly as collective economy. The 2 or 3 things that are clear is, one, that we all need to find a new cost model to work with. A new cost model which is based on much higher efficiencies than we've had before. Because one of the things the period of working showed us was that with lesser resources, lesser people, we could actually end up doing more. So that's one rethink that all smart businesses and companies are doing worldwide. The second was the ability to induct and use much more technology in every aspect of our companies and our businesses relative to whatever we have done earlier. Whether it is bringing in more efficiency into our supply chain, or it's finding a more efficient logistics system, because we do know that India has had the highest logistics cost in the world for a long, long time. Of course, we've had some improvement since we built the highways, since cargo planes got a little bit more efficient, since GST came in. There have been a number of triggers which have created some improvements in our system. But even so, we are far from where we need to be, because eventually we have to get globally competitive, not just competitive amongst our neighbors, not just the next city or the next town or the next state, but literally across the globe. Because technology and global supply chains, despite political differences in the world, have actually opened up the world to global competition. And we've seen this ourselves in India. Indian companies have been able to export more, and India is importing more. If you see in the last 30 years, this is one of the biggest changes that has taken place in India and its business and its economy as a whole. So these are two essential changes, I think, that are required. The third is the ability to work better with each other, to look at relationships with businesses being a key to continued progress and continued prosperity of businesses. You're able to support each other through thick and thin and through any kind of crisis. I think is going to be very, very important and critical. It's also important that each of us learn to manage crisis and uncertainty better than we have done before. Because I have to say that despite this amazing shock that we all got, many businesses, many companies picked themselves off, dusted themselves, and went right back. They got their people, they retrained them in the new way of working, they put in protocols for safety, and that, of course, is critical. No matter what else we do, until we have fully resolved the issue with the pandemic, we will need to have the safety protocols of masks and distance and continuous hygiene available to us. Even after the vaccine starts getting deployed, we will still have to follow all of these three as general practice, at least for the next 2 years, if not longer. And this precaution, I think, will also help us to recover quicker and to get back our lives, both the social lives and the business lives, back into a much healthier position for all of us. So to look at where the opportunities lie now, because I believe that's the theme, is recovery and resurgence. So as I said earlier, clearly recovery has begun, but it's not fully resurgent across the entire spectrum of the economy or of industry. So we will have to figure out that those sectors which are now lagging, sectors like travel and tourism and hospitality, how do we ensure that we feel comfortable enough to be able to go and stay in a hotel, take a flight, go to a theater to see a movie? For some time, the added safety or not having people packed in to these places will obviously essentially have to be followed, which will mean that even though they will become operational, but they will not be fully operational and they will not be able to run to capacity, which means their finances and their economy will still continue to be under some kind of a strain, at least for a while. So therefore, all the more important that we figure out a way to become much more cost effective. We also need to become much more responsive to the entire environment and the ecology around us. We have seen that as the winter came in, they said the cases of suffering from COVID will get compounded because of poorer air quality especially in large cities in India like Delhi and Calcutta and many of the others. The climate change that is taking place around the globe is another thing that we have to keep note of. A lot of the negative impact is man-made, is due to how we have run our lives, our businesses, our transportation, and the many things of this nature. It is important and critical that all of us become conscious that each one is a contributor and each one will be a beneficiary if we can improve the environment. So no matter what conversation you have about economy and business and trade, it must never be without two or three important components, which have to be the responsibility of all those who are in trade and in business. Because while being in commerce, we have a unique added opportunity and access to opportunities, which is not available to the entire world. There are over 1 billion people in the world who are suffering from extreme poverty. In India itself, we have over 200 million people who are living in abject poverty. So it is important and critical that all action recognizes the disparity that has taken place. On the one hand, it's a social evil. It moves and pushes people without caring for social norms towards things like crime to do things because they have to look after their families. It is therefore necessary for us to do the human thing, the humane thing, and the right thing by helping and supporting those who are less fortunate. We must do it as a part of our businesses and not only as a part of our companies, but as part of individuals and families as well. Especially for people we see around us, people who work in our homes, people who are around our homes and around our workplaces. That goodwill is immeasurable, and the goodwill you
I think there was a technical glitch, but sir, we can hear you once
can you hear
again.
me now?
Sorry. Yeah, the admin inadvertently muted you, so apologies for that. Yeah.
No, not a problem. Not a problem. So for us, I think, therefore, the communities that we work in, it's critical for us to do two things for these communities. One is to provide opportunities where we can, because that has a salutary and a multiplier effect on all of our own businesses. You are creating consumers for goods and services that you produce. The more the prosperity, the more people who are living in poverty start to become, improve their quality of life, they will also become consumers. And the second is the impact on ecology, because both of these will have both a negative impact if they're not handled and a massive positive impact if we do the right thing. The other thing I think which is important is for us to understand what globalization is doing and what it will continue to do to businesses in the future. Therefore, our system, our process, and our competitiveness have got to be at the best-in-class levels across the globe. And it does not matter where we work. It does not matter which business we are in. It does not matter which we are in the most traditional and conservative businesses, because all of them have to look at the new world and how we are going to emerge not only from this crisis, but we continue to be successful. India has this amazing target now of being $1 trillion economy. The Prime Minister and the leadership have put out a challenge to all of us to become a self-sufficient nation. Atmanirbhar is a new call, and it has to be led by industry, not by government, by the way. It has to be led by industry, and we have to play our role as members of the economy, which have a key role to play. And the government should be seen as a facilitator. And of course, the government should be a facilitator, but then should get out of the way. We should make simple rules and regulations which everyone can understand and follow. And the government should ensure that the entire facilitating mechanism is available, sufficient infrastructure is available, that availability of funding and the cost of funding is competitive, that electricity and power is available where required, that we are able to get land for setting up factories and distribution centers and logistics centers where you require. That people, because our biggest asset in India is people, but also our biggest challenge is people. If we don't train, skill, and educate the people, this very demographic dividend that we talk about can become a dividend nightmare. But if you look at the positive side, there is an amazing opportunity for us only to educate and train and skill people, because then they will go on and become more productive. Indians have recently taken to the new form of entrepreneurship. But Indians have been entrepreneurship for a long, long time. Look at your own chamber. You're over 100 years old. So you have been in business for a long time, and you've established norms, you've established systems, you've established processes, you have got a system of talking to policymakers to represent your membership from trade and industry and commerce to try and get the ecology, environment, process, systems, rules, and regulation which are suitable for business to go and create value. Business, however, must recognize that the compact between industry and the civil society at large has changed. It is no longer only about making profit. Of course, it is about making profit, but not only that. It must play the role in the other things that I mentioned. So people have started looking at EHS. They look at what is your record, how do you manage people, how do you manage the environment, how do you manage things like health, how do you manage safety at workplace and outside, how are your people looked after? Because eventually we are responsible to the society and community at large. We are not only about the physical space that we operate in, our offices, our companies, or our factories, but the impact goes way beyond that, which is why it is critical and important that we learn that competitiveness is important. We have to win as a nation, and the win as a nation only comes if each of us becomes more competitive. The way to do that is to get passionate about what we do, whatever it is we do. If we get a chance to do things in our life that we love, that is the most amazing thing that we can do for ourselves. Then the work doesn't seem like work. It's not a chore. It's not difficult. You enjoy doing what you're doing, and you're able to spend more time and more ability and more passion and get better ideas to be successful. However, if you don't have the luxury to do that, the second best thing is to start loving whatever it is you do. And I can tell you, if you make a little bit of effort, you will discover amazing things in and around the place that you work. And the moment you start to look at the positive side of that, you can get back that same passion that you could have had if you got into some business that you love. And this, I think, is an essential component for us to become winning entities, winning companies, and a winner nation. Because challenges and difficulties are a very much a part of our lives. That is what the environment is made of. Things will change, and things will change for all of us all the time. How we respond to them defines us as individuals and as corporations. Are we responsible? Are we responsive? Are we forward-looking? Do we preempt issues? Are we able to equip ourselves better than others? I think it's not one thing, it's a host of very similar sounding things that make for the best running companies. And the companies which are run well for a quarter or two or a year are a flash in the pan. But then those which are doing well and are successful quarter on quarter, year on year, or decade on decade are the real winners. And that's what real winners in the economy in the long term are made up of. And the role and responsibility that has been given to business is fully met only then. Our prime responsibility is to ensure that we do run our businesses successfully, but while doing that, all the other matters are important, that we try and provide knowledge and resource to things like education, healthcare, the softer aspects of social justice, civil society around us, and things like arts and culture. You are housed in the home of culture. India's cultural home was Bengal and West Bengal subsequently. You have taught many of us things like poetry and painting and art. But the sad part is that over the last many decades, we have allowed our cultural heritage to decline over a period of time. Now, one might ask, what does this have to do with business? But I will connect it for you in just a few minutes. First, retaining our cultural heritage, in fact, building on it, is important for ourselves as individuals, our souls, and our hearts and our minds. Our ability to be better balanced, to make better decisions, is dramatically improved if we expose ourselves to the softer aspects of our culture and the arts, as many of you will know. The second is that this, for a long, long time in history, was the largest employer in India. The employment in artisanal goods, in crafts, and things of this nature was the largest employer in India for a long time. Even now, some studies have shown that if we turn our crafts around, if artisanal skills are revived and not allowed to decline or die as they are currently doing, you can create between 100 to 250 million jobs. There is no 1 to even 5 industries put together which can create those opportunities. Just imagine if we could do even a fraction of that in India in any industry, what it would do to the industry, to trade, to business, to economy, and to people's quality of life. We could truly eradicate poverty and get India to the position of leadership that we would all like to see India at. We have always historically said India was a great nation and India has great potential. Let's try and tap into that potential and use trade and commerce as the vehicle. Fair trade and commerce. Trade and commerce run with integrity, with hard work, and the right intent in the right direction, with people as the key element and the most important component of our business. We can do that. We can truly serve the nation well. We can truly serve ourselves well. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me for this session. I'd be happy to take on any questions or comments if you have.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri Munjal. It has been quite enriching. And let me, use my position as the president to ask the first question and get a head start on everybody. Uh, One thing which I wanted to ask you is about the transformation and seeing the whole journey from being a cycle manufacturer to a largest two-wheeler organization. And I've read stuff on how Hero is also leading the way in terms of e-mobility. So from that perspective, could you give us some insights on how we as organizations can break the proverbial glass ceiling and aspire to become amongst the best in the world and work towards that? So if you could shed some light on that, it will be very helpful.
Sure. So the glass ceiling or the challenge for getting to this place, frankly, is mostly in our own minds. And I'm not underplaying the challenges in our environment or in our regulatory system, but the true challenge lies amongst ourselves. Since you talked about Hero Cycles, please remember that Hero Cycles was set up in 1956. It was a very, very restrictive work environment. Everything was licensed, all activities. The government would give you a license to tell you what to make, where to make it, and even how much to make. So in that environment, to have been able to go out and do what was done in a very short period of time, in 1986, as you may be aware, Hero Cycles became the largest company in the world in the bicycle business. And at the same time, we continue to build other businesses. We built bicycle component businesses. We built a moped business after that, then an automotive component business, then a two-wheeler business, and we also got into a number of services. We've not often publicly announced our businesses because that is the way we prefer to operate them. But we were in well over 30 businesses actually when we restructured the group. And it was not one or two, we had 7 of them that were global leaders at that time. So we found that scale has a certain magic to it. What you can do with scale, you cannot do otherwise, which is why growth is a very critical component of any successful business. The ability to find avenues for growth is very critical in our plans. So what we used to do For example, anytime an annual plan was being discussed, there was no question of a conversation saying that I will not grow. The only question that we used to ask was, how much will you grow this year? And that growth then was broken down. We were a very numbers driven organization. That is always broken down from the annual numbers to quarterly, monthly, and to daily numbers. And the monitoring, and I'm talking even before the computerized system came in, we used to monitor every 30 minutes what was going on in each of the plants to ensure that you don't have a slip up anytime, because anytime you slip up, that period of time is gone. You cannot catch it up. You cannot make that up, because if you can grow something later on, you could have grown that in any case. So one is to make sure that your focus is on the current everyday things. You have a long-term plan, but the execution has to be today and every day. I think that was one important component how it worked. The 2 or 3 other things that we did was we partnered extensively with many companies, both in India and globally, to figure out how do we get the best of each to a common beneficial goal. And the third thing we did was we encouraged people within our companies to actively experiment, try new ideas, knowing fully well that none of us has all the best ideas in one place. We have no monopoly on good ideas. They will come from anywhere and at any time. So we welcomed ideas and criticism, especially criticism. So if anyone would go out of our company, we would say, come back with 2 things. One, whatever anyone is saying that's negative about us, we want to know so we can improve. 2, we want to know if anyone is doing anything better than us. We want to be able to learn from that. Because if you're open to criticism and genuine criticism, then you can truly create a constantly learning and a constantly growing organization.
That's very enlightening. Would anybody else want to take the next question? Yes, so Mr. Suresh Junjunwala, I think you are trying to unmute yourself.
Well, it's I did, but then I can't lose this opportunity of having an interaction with a person who I've always admired. Sunilji, you have given a very practical solution to succeed in whatever you're doing. Is that if you don't love your job, try to learn to love it. And there lies the challenge, there lies the mantra for success. And as you rightly said, that we have to be responsible citizens. I mean, whatever businesses we are in, we have to be concerned about our EHS society, and that, I was amazed when you said we all have plans for a daily basis, our daily productivity basis. But when you said every 30 minutes, that set the ball ringing. Then that is the macro level planning one has to do. One has to be after in succeeding and uh, challenging yourself every moment, every minute. So I think the mantra we have got is uh, every minute, success every minute, love it if you're doing the job. And the rest is responsibility. I mean, which we had in our families, that we be responsive to environment, be responsive to society. Now the government is sort of legalizing it by a CSR, but that is the inbuilt in, I think, most of us. But then that's again something which we must respond to, and that will lead to better social fabric, which will help us in growing our businesses, not just to profits, also to have a better image in the society, in the state and the center, and ultimately the world at large. So I think thank you for this wonderful interaction, but I will not stand in the way of others who would like to interact with you. Thank you once again, sir, for addressing us.
You're right.
Thank you.
And in Indian, there are enough sayings to tell you that more you give, the more you get. So even in one's self-enlightened interest, it's sensible to do more of this. And by the way, when I'm talking about this, I'm not only talking about companies doing it. I'm also talking about us doing it as individuals and families, because many families, exactly as you said, already have this culture. So we need to build on this culture, but do it in an organized fashion so that it's most effective. Do it so that it's truly beneficial to those who it's meant for. Not only because, and I have to say this, because too often it is done to show others. I don't think that should be the objective. The objective is to, if you're reaching out to some individuals and some community, how do they benefit the most? Because that is where you will get the best satisfaction, and that is where it will truly serve the nation and ourselves. But thank you. That was a good observation.
So, I have one question that has come to me through a message because the person is not on good network area. So I'll take the question. The question is, many of the MSMEs have a deep desire to be at cutting edge of research, but there is a shortage of dollars that one can spend being an MSME in the research. So could you give us some practical nuggets as to how your organization did it in the initial days? Because I think that's one of the key areas how you can grow rapidly if you are innovating and getting something new to the market.
So this is a very good point that whoever is asking this question has made. Was one of the key elements for us going forward is going to be innovation and entrepreneurship. I think these are two absolutely essential requirements that we will have to evolve as a much more developed economy and an industry. So it does not matter what the size of the company is. Innovation is never a barrier for the size is never a barrier for innovation, by the way. And it's not about more or less dollars. It is the intent. If you have the intent within this, whatever the scale of the organization, you have to be able to allocate something for innovation, ideation, and research. Because please remember, this will benefit you itself. It's actually a multiplier of benefit to the business. It is truly about the approach. It's not anything else. India, unfortunately, has a very sad record of having amongst the lowest allocation towards research from industry, especially private industry. As you might know, the largest contributor to research in industry is the public sector and the government itself. It's not private industry. There are very few private industries which have focused on innovation. And if you see, frankly, those are the companies that have stood out. They have grown. They have grown better than others because they are innovating constantly. And that gives them the edge. The moment you start doing it, it's only a question of making up your mind what comes first. Are you going to make a lot of money and only then decide to do it? Because if you do it earlier, then you will start making money quicker. Deploy a part of that money, allocate in your own budgets every year some amount which goes towards innovation and research. Encourage people to do this. And I'll give you another story about something that we used to do in our companies, since you asked. As I said, we have always encouraged people to experiment. And in the town halls that we used to do in the companies, we would invite people up to town halls done by senior people, and those who had done something special would get a pat on their back and get recognized as having done something special. But at the same time, somebody who tried and failed was also called up and given the exact same recognition, because the recognition was not being given for passing something. It was being given for trying to do something. Because when you are going to start an experiment or a research or innovation, you have no idea whether it's going to work or not. It could blow up. You could fall on your flat on your face, and you might fail. So if you don't get recognition for that, or if you get ticked off and you get fired, you will not try something new again. So if you create that environment, and that is the responsibility of the senior management, you have to create an environment within your organization that you encourage experimentation, even if, and especially if all of it does not work. Because in India, we've had a cultural issue. We do not easily accept failure in our culture. Our society looks down upon failure, and that is one of our serious failings as an institution, as company, and as people.
Great. Any other questions from the audience?
So,
yes.
So one of the things we have to watch out for right now is see that the very issue which has caused this crisis, the pandemic, is also one that is driving people towards innovation. There are many more organizations, many more people. Let me talk a little bit about the startups first. As I said earlier, India has been entrepreneurial and innovative through history, and I'm talking about millennia now. But over the last few hundred years, clearly we have slipped badly. So it is time that we turn this around and go back to our leadership position. So I'm absolutely delighted when one hears much more entrepreneurship amongst the young people in India. Many in universities and colleges now are not looking for jobs. They want to be job creators and not job seekers. And I think that is fantastic because that creates a multiplier on overall employment and prosperity in the country. We are now the third largest startup nation in the world and growing. And some of the areas in which some of the new startups are focused are fantastic. Many are in deep technology, in healthcare, in the rural economy, in agriculture, in education, in clean drinking water. There are some of them are doing amazing work. I would urge you, the more established ones, to encourage more young people within your own system, in your own families, in your own companies, to go out and do things, even if they're things connected to your business, or especially if they're things not connected to your business. Please encourage both, because that is the only way for us as a nation to take a quantum leap forward. Incremental growth, which we are very clear will happen in India now. We are set on a path where there will be some growth. But because a challenge of poverty and hunger is so large in India, unless we are able to address all of it, the growth will continue to be stunted, because that's a counterweight to any positive growth that we are doing. We have to address that. And therefore, it is important that innovation is encouraged, because that's the way. Innovation.
Thank you so much. Now, because we've also come to the end of our. Yes, please, sir, please continue.
No, go ahead. You're going to ask something. Yeah.
No, actually, I was going to ask the house for a last question because we are running out of time. So if not, I would request, Mr. Rishabh Kothari, who's my senior vice president, to, propose a vote of thanks. And genuinely, before he does that, I would like to thank you for taking this time out to address us. I know you've been very busy. You had board meetings for a couple of days in this week, and you've still decided to attend this at, in the latter half of Saturday, which technically weekend started. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate. But a more formal vote of thanks would come from Mr. Rishabh Kothari. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sunilji, a very good evening to you. This was an extremely enlightening and mesmerizing session. I think we've had a lot of speakers, the kind of insights that you've brought in. And what was most interesting is the humane touch with which you added the fact that we are all interrelated, the fact that we have to give back to society, and also what you spoke about innovation. I think this has been a most interesting and illuminating session. So, sir, it is my great pleasure and great honor to propose a very hearty vote of thanks for this great session that we've had with you. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing your time, as Akash mentioned, on a Saturday evening. We are aware of how busy you have been, and yet you took the time out to address all of us. So I propose a hearty vote of thanks with acclamation and request everyone to take it home. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. And good luck and good wishes.
And I also would like to thank Mr. Prakash Nair of your team. He has been very, very supportive to make this happen. Thank you, Prakash.
Thank you. I shall pass on the message to him. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All the best.